You know, when an acclaimed show ends, especially one for Night Gallery, from the pilot to the last season, it was on 3.5, 4 years, and please the critics, please the fans, you're supposed to be going out with something positive. Well, not in this case. One of the worst episodes in the Rod Serling oeuvre, Twilight Zone or Night Gallery, and saying a lot, there was bummers in both. Something called Hatred Unto Death. It was the last half-hour episode of Night Gallery. In this one, it's a revenge tale. Basically, shouldn't have been told at all. David Jewell on his podcast blog site gave a half star. I gave it 0 stars. Again, one of the worst Twilight Zone Night Gallery episodes I've ever seen. And I didn't see it first run. When I finally saw it on DVD, pourri, as we say in French. In this one, an anthropologist brings a girl back from the African veldt to settle a mano-a-mano grudge going back perhaps millennia in this ridiculous story. Teleplay was by Halsted Wells, with story by Milton Geiger, directed by Gerald Perry Fitterman, with Steve Forrest, usually much better. He plays Wilson. Dina Merrill, some consider one of the worst actors of her generation, as Ruth Wilson. Fernando Lamas, who was wasted as Dr. Ramirez. George Barrows as NG. Caro Kenyatta as the first native. Ed Rue as the second native. And David Tyrone as the third native. Now, according to Jewell, rather than going out with a bang, Night Gallery went out with a colossal thud. The series, for many, had many highlight moments, some uneven. But apart from the silly 1 to 2 minute blackout sketches, most of the fuller-length stories had at least some redeeming qualities. Not so with this major story in this, again, the final Night Gallery episode. By this time, be cancelled. It wasn't promoting it. It was given the debt broadcast. Didn't really do any ratings in the second half, although in the first half of the season there were some decent episodes. Now, Hatred Unto Death begins with a married anthropologist couple, Grant and Ruth Wilson, driving through Africa. They come upon some natives who trapped a gorilla in a dugout pit. As the two peer down at the gorilla takes note of them as well. It seems like Ruth, but appears to have a strong dislike for Grant. Grant, in turn, feels a big heap of dislike for the gorilla, sensing something more than just an angry ape caught in a trap. Breaking with the conventions of her profession, Grant decides to capture the gorilla and bring it back to an American museum for study. Ruth strongly protests, arguing they should release the beast. They return to the States and go to the museum where the gorilla is being kept. Their colleague, Dr. Ramirez, again, Fernando Lamas has wasted. He would be better for the lead on this. Shares a theory with Grant whereby beings are reincarnated again and again, thus offering the possibility that the gorilla and Grant were adversaries long ago, and that they can both sense that and feel the need to confront each other in the current incarnations. The men leave and Ruth stays behind with the caged gorilla, telling him a tale of two apes who fought for the love of a female. The gorilla gets upset either by the story or his caged surroundings, or perhaps by the wooden performance of Dina Merrill. Now Ruth unlocks the cage to comfort the beast, and as it escapes, boys. Going into a rage, and she desperately phones Grant, who is working in his nearby office, and he rushes over with a pistol. A cat and mouse and the adversary commences in a nearby storage area, allowing for hiding behind crates and taking cover while shooting the pistol. Grant hits the gorilla several times, slowing it, then finally seems to deliver a fatal gunshot with the final round. However, Grant turns back to Ruth, but the gorilla has one less burst of life in him, and picks up Grant and slams him down, impaling him on a set of animal horns, thus winning the battle this time around. Now, what can be said in this episode, Jewell said. Forrest, who was good in Season 2's The Waiting Room, here can't do much when the character is forced to act in completely irrational ways. The script is a total embarrassment. Halt much better. Night Gallery before. Longtime cinematographer Gerald Fitterman, of course from Star Trek fame, was given the thankless task of directing, and shows why he should have stuck to photographing the episodes. By far the worst of the fuller-length Night Gallery stories, and to cap the final episode off, there was another blackout sketch which followed. That was terrible. Now I'm going to talk about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's like this. If you read Scott Skelton's book, came out in 1999, about what he did with the final episodes of Night Gallery and how Rod Serling and Jack Laird's co-production, Laird of course in charge, but Serling wrote a lot of the scripts, how it was abandoned in the final season, and it didn't have to be. It could have been brought back in a 1 hour format, or it could have been get some of the directors and writers that were helping out on NBC and like the 4-in-1, Columbo, and a few other things. But this was an insult to all the Night Gallery fans. You saw the greatness of season 2 when we talked about that, the show about the waiting room. For example, Steve Forrest led the charge in that episode. And seeing him here, usually when there's episodic actors or method actors, they pay tribute if there are repeat visits to a dramatic series to keep momentum going on the previous performance. But this was like mailed in. I only think the reason the script was approved because Planet of the Apes, I think at the time, Battle for the Planet of the Apes was about to release. Conquest of the Planet of the Apes was out. You had Escape to the Planet of the Apes, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and the original Planet of the Apes. Plus, you had the TV series was about to come on. So this is like the what they call the Ape City motif. But the special effects with the monkey were just terrible. Kind of comparable when you use that gorilla in Kentucky Fried Movie. The same kind of effects. But Dina Merrill, my God, God bless her, she's a beautiful lady, but she couldn't act her way out of a paper bag. She couldn't act her way out of a plastic bag. And she was not a bad person from what I heard, but my God, what a... Whew. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, 3rd season. I've been doing some of the podcasts. I promised not to, but we're getting a lot of requests for 3rd seasons and some of the bad episodes of season 1 and season 2 because I want to start with the cream of the crop before I get to the curdled milk. There's going to be a few more podcasts, but we're getting close to saturation point. I think we get 65 episodic reviews so far, or segment reviews. We're going to keep it going as long as we can. Problem is, I've already talked about the Night Gallery scripts that were not done for television. I might talk about the fact how Night Gallery was positioned on the dial, especially in Canada. I've been researching that quite a bit. I think it was after the local news in most markets, and that's something maybe they were scared of some of the very mature stories that are being presented. Thanks for listening. Give us a like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget, requests are always appreciated and always heavily considered. Thanks for listening. Bye.